Okay, stop me if you've heard this one before. You're deep into a fantasy movie or maybe grinding through an RPG, and there's always that one ancient kingdom. You know the vibe? It used to be glorious. The architecture is insane, but kinda crumbling, and they're fighting a losing war against a dark force. We usually think legends like J.R.R. Tolkien or George R.R. Martin just made this stuff up while staring at a wall map. But they didn't. Most people think the fantasy genre comes from the Dark Ages or King Arthur, but the reality is way wilder. The blueprint for your favorite fictional worlds isn't magic, it's the Eastern Roman Empire, or, as we call it, Byzantium. And honestly, the real history is messier and more dramatic than anything HBO could ever write. Let's start with the mood. You know how in Lord of the Rings, Gondor feels like this massive, ancient place that's seen better days? It's grand, but it's tired. That is literally the Byzantine Empire history you might have missed in school. See, after the Western Roman Empire fell apart, the East just kept going for 1,000 years. But it wasn't a smooth ride. They spent centuries watching their borders shrink and their enemies multiply. It's that exact feeling of holding the line that makes high fantasy feel so heavy and epic. There's actually a video essay floating around called Gondor is Byzantium, and honestly, that title hits the nail on the head. The Byzantines called themselves Romans. They had the receipts, they had the infrastructure, but they were living in the shadow of a golden age that was slowly fading away. That obsession with a lost legacy, that's not just an elf thing. That was real life in Constantinople. Then you have the religion. Fantasy worlds are always full of weird prophecies, conflicting gods, and people getting absolutely canceled, or worse, for believing the wrong thing. In Byzantium, religion wasn't just something you did on Sundays. It was politics, it was sports, it was life and death. They had riots in the streets over definitions of theology so specific, you'd need a philosophy degree to understand them. Think about the sparrows in Game of Thrones lore, or the complex magic systems in Wheel of Time. That intensity comes from here. There was a period called iconoclasm where they literally banned religious art. It lasted for over a century. People were destroying mosaics and burning icons because they thought that was why they were losing wars. It was absolute chaos. When you see fantasy factions fighting over the true interpretation of a prophecy, that is pure Byzantine energy. Speaking of chaos, let's talk about the drama. If you think the Red Wedding was bad, you haven't read up on Byzantine politics. This is where the real history behind Game of Thrones actually gets its juice. We aren't just talking about armies clashing on a field, we are talking about schemes within schemes. The Byzantine court was a snake pit. You had bureaucrats, generals, and eunuchs all stabbing each other in the back, sometimes literally. The punishments were brutal. If you wanted to take someone out of the running for emperor, you didn't just kill them. You blinded them, or cut off their nose. It was a loophole. The law said the emperor had to be physically perfect, so if you messed up their face, they couldn't rule. There was an empress named Irene who wanted to rule alone, so she had her own son blinded. Her own son. That is cold. The complexity of the politics, where a whisper in a hallway could bring down a dynasty, is exactly what makes modern fantasy stories feel so tense. And you can't have a fantasy empire without the city. Capital T, capital C. In every story, there's that one location that is the center of the world. King's Landing, Valyria, Minas Tirith. For the real world, that was Constantinople. History in a nutshell. It was huge. While London and Paris were basically muddy villages, Constantinople had 500,000 people, paved streets and streetlights. But the citizens? They were rowdy. They had these chariot racing teams, the Blues and the Greens, which were basically like football hooligans mixed with political parties. One time, they got so mad at the emperor, they stopped fighting each other, teamed up, and burned half the city down. It took the military to stop them, and thousands died in the stadium. It sounds like a plot point from a book, but these are actual historical facts. Finally, it's just the aesthetic, the look. When you picture high fantasy, you picture gold, purple silk, intricate mosaics, and mysterious rituals. That is the Byzantine aesthetic. They invented that style. The emperors looked like statues covered in jewels. They had mechanical birds in the throne room that would sing to impress visitors. It was designed to feel otherworldly, to make you feel like you were stepping into heaven on earth. So the next time you're reading about a fallen empire trying to protect the realm from darkness, just remember, it's not just imagination. It's historical inspiration remixing one of the most resilient, dramatic, and wildest civilizations to ever exist. It's crazy how much reality beats fiction sometimes, right? If you dug this deep dive into the real-world origins of our favorite stories, do me a huge favor, smash that like button and hit subscribe. It really helps the algorithm find other history nerds like us. You've been watching History's Anomaly 24, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.